The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it.
Welcome to the InsideOutrz podcast with me, Danny Lloyd, the man that put the I in addict and now is here to put the Y in you.
Here we are. It is Jordan Lockerbie, aka the Lock Dog, aka former Rock Bottom resident.
Boom. What's been happening, Lock Dog?
Well, we've had the Christmas break off, pretty much a good part of December, and now we're at the beginning of, well, it's 2 months. That's ridiculous, really.
Yeah.
It's a couple of months off, just due to some tech issues and all the things, but we are back.
Correct.
We said we'll be back, and we're back.
We are, yeah. We had a few interesting issues technically. It was kind of put a pause to the podcast show, but we're back now. We're actually back in the future because the episodes that people will be watching are back there that are now going to be playing this week. But it's not this week on the episode that they'll be watching because this is this week.
All right, Doc.
Yep. I've been in the sun all day. It's been a lot.
We'll get in the DeLorean and Back to the Future.
Yeah, it's been a lot. So anyway, it's good to be back in the seat. How was your festive period, Lock Dog?
It was good, man. It was spent with a partner and getting to know all of her family. You know, we were all at her place and all of her family gathered together, and it was probably the best opportunity to get to know everyone at once.
Yeah.
I think they like me.
You think?
I think.
Well, it doesn't really matter if they like you or not, as long as your partner likes you, and really everything else just falls into place from there, right?
Yeah.
In fact, it really only matters if you like you.
Well, I like me.
Well, there we go. Everyone else will like you then.
Well, I don't really care.
Exactly. Good chat. Good chat. Oh, well, so, it's good to be back getting our podcast on and moving forward with our plans this year for our business that runs alongside our podcast show, helping all of the people, addressing all of the issues and getting involved with as much as we can. And congratulations to the Lock Dog for getting a new part-time job working within the prison system too. As we build our business, we also need to be able to pay our bills and know when to put the financial oxygen mask on.
Well, you know, it's in alignment, helping others, serving the community. So, I guess it's not really a job, is it?
Well, that's it. Like they said, a dog's not just for Christmas; it's for life.
So, I guess just a recap before we get into it.
Yep.
Me and you together, side by side, run Inside Out Coaching and Consultancy Collective.
Yep.
It is targeted around mental health and addiction and recovery. We do a lot of coaching. I myself am a drug and alcohol clinician, as well as Mr. Lloyd. We've worked and coached in the mental health sector for best part of a decade now. Both lived experience, that's kind of given us an edge. We work vigorously to serve the community, and a lot of our work, oddly, is with men, although we don't have a gender preference, but we tend to see there's a rise in men stepping forward, which is great. So please, fellas, continue to do that.
Correct.
On that, today we are going to discuss a little bit around ADHD. It's also personal to Mr. Lloyd, as it's something he's dealt with over the years. And it wasn't until really recently that he was told that he has ADHD.
Yeah.
And it was probably an answer to a lot of questions in Mr. Lloyd's head throughout the years of what I could call probably destructive behaviours.
Yeah.
Things that probably weren't the greatest.
Nah. It's a veritable war zone on day-to-day basis sometimes inside of my little noggin.
Yeah.
And not knowing anything before was making me honestly question my sanity. Now I understand that I have some mental unhealth in there that I have to learn how to manage correctly. But I refuse to have medication because I like who I am. but I just don't like how my brain works on a day-to-day basis with things. Sometimes I get very hyper-fixated on things, and I run stories and I go off in tangents, and it's like I need someone to come along and just fit me into a system that I can feel comfortable in, and then I'll be able to probably be much more efficient and be like some sort of super freak, like something out of Bradley Cooper and Limitless, and I'll just be able to learn and take the world on much better. But haven't found that magic framework yet. So,
well, it is definitely something that is, I think, a hot topic as of late, probably the last couple of years. There's definitely more and more people coming forward with an ADHD diagnosis. And it's not really a trend. I think it's something that, without the awareness of mental health, and especially the space of ADHD, there's a lot of people suffering in silence. And really, and I'm going to assume, like yourself, had a lot of questions and self-doubt around what's wrong with me, who am I, why can't I be like the guy to my left or right, and very much feel like, you stand out in a crowd when all you want to do is fit in. And sometimes, getting told that actually this is what you have, it's a disorder. And I guess like ADHD, your head can be disordered. Things aren't linear and, like the average Joe.
Yeah, it's like a gummy bear bouncing around in my head some days.
But, for a lot of people, it is kind of liberating and calming to go, this is what you have.
Yeah.
And then you go, oh, all right, that makes sense. I got an answer. There's not really something different, really. I just have something going on in my head that's not the same as everyone. But, we're all unique, and getting that diagnosis or being told this is what you got, well, now you know what to do with it.
Well, it's understanding your enemy is the only way you win a war, right? It's like a chess game. And so if you know there's something through a diagnosis that is going on inside you internally, then you can learn about it and know how to make it into a superpower. Because some of the most highly successful, driven, giving and wonderful characters in this world are riddled with ADHD as a diagnosis, but they've just found a way to harness it. I mean, I met a gentleman the other day by the name of Titan. His name is actually called, he was called Titan. He was like about 6'6" nearly. And I sat there with him and Mr. Dempsey, our friend, and he talked rapid fire, bro, like absolute rapid fire, like 100 mile an hour. He actually made me feel so calm with his hyperactive talking and movements and everything. It was great, actually, just to be around someone else as hectic. Anyway, he told me basically he's a very successful man and a very, very high quality, high-end hypnosis expert, and he does a lot of really amazing things. But he basically told me he spent 10 years consistently meditating to the point it then just became a superpower, ADHD, like, and he hasn't really done it that much ever since. He just did a decade of just making it an atomic habit and just meditating on a daily basis so that he could control his thoughts and control his hyperactivity in the brain. And I mean, now he's exactly what most people will become if they can find a way of honing it in, because when you have ADHD, you are able to do things superhumanly compared to others if you can focus on getting everything done and not start like 100 things and do them all at 10% instead of doing one thing well at 100%.
Yeah, which, and I guess, I can understand how it can be a superpower, but I also see how it can be debilitating or disabling, because if someone says, hey, I want you to do this task, and you're like, this is boring as shit, the attention you give to it or try to give to it would be a lot harder than someone of a typical mind.
Yeah.
Where they can go, all right, I'm going to give this 110%, where you're like, this is boring the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I've got other things I enjoy. There's very little stimuli here. My head's going somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, and also, I mean, for me, I would say, we'd have to ask our old CEO, Carol Taylor, but I think she would agree with this sentiment that I'm almost unmanageable. Like, I mean, I'm coachable and I can be told things, but I also, once I get good at something, I'm manageable. I'm like, no, I got to do it this way.
Yeah.
And I don't have a lot of flexibility. And yeah, look, as I said before, yes, it can be a superpower, but it absolutely cripples me on a day-to-day basis. You know more than anyone. You not only work alongside me even before we opened our business when we did the program in Alice, but you live with me. And so, yeah, I mean, you have to put up with that shit. And it's crippling, man. Like, it's like, even though I have a pretty good routine and I've mainly got myself together since the last 20 years of absolute chaos and carnage and mayhem that I caused, I still, on a day-to-day basis, absolutely wears me down some days when I don't have a handle on it. Do you know what I mean? It's like having it's kind of like having a child that's teething, right? Yeah. And they're just at you every day because they're in pain, and they just keep you awake day and night, day and night, day and night, day and night. And then all of a sudden it just stops for a day, and that's the day when you've just got it under control.
Yeah.
And then it starts again, and that's how it feels, like inside my head. And okay, look, I could go and get the medication. I don't think it's a great idea for an ex-meth addict to go and get what is basically legal meth.
Well, that's actually where I wanted to eventually steer this into, because I'm not sure we've discussed it before, or we might have briefly touched on it, but you had, correct me if I'm wrong, a good 5-6 years in a meth addiction. But the way your meth addiction was maybe quite left field to most people because of your ADHD.
Yeah, people wouldn't have a clue I was on it.
Yeah, so you want to explain that? Because I think it's very interesting. Like, I have an understanding of ADHD is generally medicated with amphetamine-based medication. Yeah. But then, like, when we break down meth, it's amphetamine-based, probably of the worst kind.
Yeah.
But just go through a bit about how that was for you and what you noticed in yourself compared to others. Because,
well, first of all, visually, this makes me laugh when I think about this. So visually, you wouldn't be able to tell. Like, if you look at most other people that are on meth, on the bender, 2-3 days awake, or whatever, it's so obvious. Like, you don't need to be an expert. You can just go, wow, that lad's off his head. Like, Chopsville, right? Me, I was just completely calm. Like, a little bit like whatever, but that's just normally who I am. And basically, for anyone that doesn't understand why a very high-end stimulant would do that to me, because I have very hyperactive brain chemicals and behavior, it's called a paradox. So if you take a stimulant like methamphetamines, crystal meth, or cocaine, it will paradox or cancel it out through the fact I'm already stimulated. I'm overstimulated already through my brain chemicals of having ADHD. And so you put a stimulant in and it turns into a depressant. Technically, that's what but it doesn't. It just kind of calms me.
Yeah.
So it does. I guess it does. It depresses my mood. And then if you were to give me weed, like when I used to smoke ganja with people, like people punch cones and smoke bongs and, smoke joints, and like they're just like, hey, yeah, man, yeah, what's going on? And I'd be like, what's going on? What should we do? I'll go and do this, that. And everyone just, oh, shut the fuck up, man. Like, I can't deal with this. Like, because it was a depressant drug. And so it cancelled out and made me hyperactive because it does the opposite. So any drug you give me it does the opposite to me than it does to anyone with a normal brain. And so as such, I didn't know this at the time, but I just thought I was really good at math. Yeah. I just thought I was good at math. Like when I was on math for those 5 years, I didn't rob no one. I didn't steal from no one. I kept a job. I had savings within reason. I worked hard. I didn't change the way I was personally to people that I was around. Like I wasn't like a nut job or a psycho. I was still a kind person, a giving person. Fair enough. For a couple of years there, the other side of the world and the people that loved me got cut off as it got deeper and darker, because it's called ice, because it literally, like the drug, crystal meth, is called ice on the streets because it literally freezes who you are and your emotions and your emotional responses to anything. Yeah.
Do you definitely feel because of that drug, you cut off contact with those closest to you due to a level of stigma around that drug as well?
100%. I mean, like, imagine turning around and saying to my mum, well, I probably could have told my mum in relation to she's always been open-minded to just want to know what's wrong so she can help me. But I mean, yeah, if I told people back home that I was on, and where I originally come from is a tiny little island, right? So, you know, people do have a heroin problem over there. But I mean, you know, crystal meth, like doing hard drugs like that, it's not the thing. Like I was even back home recently and I caught up with somebody and I've been talking to them, and she's had a battle for a long time with opioid addiction. And she said to me, she goes, I would never have known you were on the hard drugs. Like it's just not who I thought you were when I remember you when you were younger. And I'm like, well, what does that even mean? Like, it's not who you thought I was when I was younger, but it is now. Like everybody and anybody watching this today, mark my words, you can sit there and think that addiction may never touch you. 3 degrees of separation. If it ain't touching you, it is touching someone close to you. And I'm telling you now, with all of the right upbringings and all of the right resources and all of the right successes early in your life, trust me, it can still get you. It's the same as homelessness. Yeah. All right? You go and speak to someone that's homeless. Some of them used to be millionaires, multi-millionaires, and had it all. Right? Like, life has a funny way of catching you on the blind side. Yeah. Right? And this is why I always stress that I got out of my addiction because of the way I was raised. I got into it because of other factors.
Yeah. And yeah, that's another thing I love to touch on is, so when I've done research on ADHD, it says, you know, like all these characteristics and factors that go into someone with ADHD, and then it's kind of got what they're more likely to do as a result of having the disorder. Yep. And one of them that really stood out to me is the impulsivity. Yep. You know, more likely to have poor self-control, more likely to have addictive tendencies, risk-taking behaviours. And I'm sure like you can agree that that's probably been you as well. But do you think if this was something that was addressed at an earlier age,
if it was understood, you got to remember, right? My age group, right? Like 40 in 3 weeks' time, like my age group, it wasn't talked about back then. It was just apparently you were a naughty kid. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So like, but yeah, if it had been, it's a double-edged sword, this question. If it had it been for our generation addressed at an earlier age and understood, would it have helped us? Yes. But now it's understood, and I watch it with kids, it's the opposite, and I feel like it's not helping them because they're being labelled and then they get stuck in this label. I'm kind of glad I didn't have... When you get given a label, that becomes your identity. When it becomes your identity, you live in a perpetual motion of being an ADHD person.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like now when you see it, because mental health is talked about and everything, now it's like, I feel like it's gone the other way. And I feel like kids now, all of them are just being labelled with ADHD. And I don't actually know if that's completely true or not. Maybe it is. But it's like, now we've gone too far the other way. And this is so a fact of life with the human race. We go one way and then we go, oh no, we went the wrong way. And then we go all the way the other way and then we take ages to get in the middle. Perfect example is apartheid in South Africa. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I know that's random. This is literally my ADHD doing the thing, but it follow me. We went one way, and racist white South Africa and all the things that went on until Nelson Mandela stood up and did what he did and the amazing things he did, right? And then the black community of South Africa then got to get more rights, and we went completely the other way, right? And I was watching a documentary only a few years back where now all the white people, farmers, whatever, they're all now homeless. They can't get job opportunities ahead of black people. And so we've just swung completely the other way now. And then I think what happens in the end with civilization is we find our way into the middle. So I feel right now we've gone from one end of not even talking about it, like in my generation and before, and being labelled like, my whole year at school, we were labelled the worst year in the history of Elizabeth College. Like, I remember the principal literally saying it. Now, when you think about that as well, right? Like, this is why the school system I struggle with, because it's like, well, what hope did we have if that's what we were getting told? I'm not saying we weren't misbehaving, but imagine being told that and then walking away from school and just, that was your label. We were the worst year ever. And I'll tell you right now, especially in my recent visit home, a lot of my friends or school colleagues that I went to school with, they've all had a hell of a life. It's not been good.
Yeah. And would you say they're in a good place now?
No, not really. Yeah, they're probably at that point of self-discovery now, but there's a long way to go still. I would suggest that the first half of our 40s, the majority of my friends or group from my year will be on a roller coaster of sorts. And then when we come out the other end of it, like, it'll be pretty cool. It'll be pretty special. I think we'll end up doing some really amazing stuff, all of us in our different ways. But, there was so many of the people I remember at school who were expelled or always being attacked by the school because they were disruptive in class. That disruptive is because they were being put in a system or being taught things that they couldn't focus on, because a lot of them, for whatever reason, had ADHD, but it was just undiagnosed and we were just known as troublesome kids.
Yeah, it's interesting. It almost sounds like a generational social thing. It'd be cool actually if we had a social worker here right now for that.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, I kind of raised that about, if there was an earlier knowledge of ADHD, because I just think for those that aren't aware, but Mr. Lloyd also created, after his addiction, a methamphetamine through care program, or a meth outreach program, which was delivered in a community. And I know from chats before this episode that you, Mr. Lloyd, seen quite a few adults come through, and crystal meth was their primary drug of choice.
Yep.
And then you also later on had them diagnosed with
Correct.
Adult ADHD.
Nearly every one of them. Nearly every single one of them had so follow this. This is a trip you out. So this is how nearly every one of my clients went. Now I look back. Significant emotional events happen when they're young, right? Whatever that is. They struggle at school. They get kicked out of school, or they don't fit in. Families get frustrated with them sometimes, even, whatever. Right? they continue to walk around with no identity because they don't understand why they are who they are and everyone else doesn't. So they become disconnected.
Yeah.
They don't have any filter for danger at all. You'll find a lot of clients I had used to do extreme sports and all sorts. I'm the same. I love it, man. Like you skydiving, I'll go right now. Jump in a great white shark cage, bungee jump, reverse bungee jump, like you name it, I'll do it. I'm in. Like I just need to. I have no filter for danger at all. That also is not great for choosing the right people to hang around. Right?
Yeah.
Then from that disconnect, people either get themselves into trouble, start dealing drugs, they're trying to find somewhere to fit. They're trying to find their community. It's as simple as that. We're all just trying to find home. We're trying to find our way home. And our home is a community where we want to belong, right? I still don't even know where the fuck I fit, if I'm honest. Outside of having you, I don't know where I fit, bruv. I've literally been sat there today doing this garden stuff, just on the hustle there to commit some money. And I mean, it's been pretty hot today, and I'm in the sun all day. But I had a hat on, so it's not like my brain was cooked. But I've just been sitting there going like, I don't know where I fit. Like I don't know where I fit. Like I'm still don't know where I fit, even though I've got better. I don't know where I fit. So then these clients, at some point, then discover whether it be weed, whatever, and then come across meth, right? All of a sudden, after the first time of using it, they feel like they know who they are. Yeah. They don't know who they are, but they've connected with something that understands them.
Yeah, and generally there's a social peer group that also use, and everyone has using in common. Now we're all friends,
yep.
But not really.
We're not really friends.
But we'll pretend we are, because we're all in the same room, we're all talking and laughing and doing our recreational drug use that turns into a nasty addiction.
Birds of a feather.
Yeah, flock together.
Yeah.
Well, actually, on this, I'd grabbed a little piece of information which I thought was interesting, just because ADHD is a highly spoken about topic at the moment. So it was on the Stanford Institute for Economic Policy Research. Don't sue me, Stanford, for repeating this. So it said today nearly 1 out of every 10 youths in the United States is diagnosed with ADHD. An increase also reflected in other nations. This makes ADHD the most common mental health condition among children worldwide. So, and I was thinking about that after I read it, and I thought, you know, it's probably in a way good that it's trending, because when we look at, you know, the poor self-control and the addictive tendencies, so, you know, getting these kids diagnosed earlier means less people ending up later on in a program like your outreach program.
Yeah. Well, 100%. I think we've come a long way with unraveling the stigmatism around mental health.
Yeah.
What I think still needs to be addressed is unraveling the stigmatism around addiction, which is actually the same thing, because mental health and addiction aren't separate.
Yeah. And
so even though they may be getting diagnosed, Mr. Smith, who we've had on the show before, Mr. Daniel Smith, he actually went and got taught about his ADHD by his doctor. He didn't want the medications. They gave him meds, but he said to me, he's like, yeah, it wasn't good for me to have the meds for many reasons. So he chose to learn about how he had to manage it. So I do think it's really good to get a diagnosis, but then you've got to be committed to understanding it and managing it, which, ironically, with ADHD, you struggle to focus and learn sometimes and take things in if they don't interest you.
Yeah, but it is like, I guess for some, because I know Dan and also I know you, but I guess, you know, like you said before, meditation, which... what was his name?
Titan.
Almost said Thor.
Titan.
You know, like he's been doing meditation for 10 years, and my understanding is generally with people with an ADHD disorder, their neural pathways have wired and fired a little bit differently to an average person. Let's call them average. But doing those things is like taking your brain to the gym, meditation or doing activities that involves a lot of focus and strengthening and channeling neural pathways in the areas where they're lacking builds up that muscle, like taking to the gym.
It does. It's just repetition is king, but it's just not so as easy as people make out just to switch on and repeat something like that. Like I've gone through periods where I've made sure in the morning I get up and I meditate. But when I say meditate, right, like it's not always meditation. It's absolute chaos in my head. Like, it's just like, I've always described it this way. If you ever have seen the film Up and there's a dog in the film and he cannot focus, he's literally riddled with ADHD, this dog, and he'll be walking along and the owner's talking to him or whatever, and just out of nowhere he'll be like, squirrel, and he cannot focus, right? So like, I'll lay down some mornings on the floor to meditate, and I'll close my eyes and I've got the music on, the meditation music or the binaural beats or whatever it is, right? And I'm like doing the breathing and just kind of like just emptying the brain, right? And I'm not joking you. Every time I'm thinking about emptying my brain or trying to focus on it, I'm just like, gardening, got to do that thing, that quote there. What about the business? What about this? Should I buy that supplement? What am I doing at the gym today? And it's just like absolute carnage. I'm just being attacked by my thoughts at all angles. Sometimes, like, I think we did one last night, me and you at home, and like, that was cool, man. Like, I can see the benefit, but it's real hard on the days you try and it's like that, and you just go, what's the point?
Yeah.
Like, but that's a human nature, right? Of just giving up, because it's like, oh, well, it's not working every day. It is working every day. It's just that it's not working every day.
Yeah, and I kind of think it's about getting to know what works for you, Like, you could have 10 people with ADHD. Those 10 people are not the same.
No.
And I know actually a young fellow I work with who has ADHD, he requires a lot of energy expenditure, both physically and mentally, to do activities, say like a meditation. Not that he does them because he doesn't like them, but, he has to do that first. So it would be something aimed at in the evening, not in the morning, because, he's like a V8 coming down the track in the morning, straight out of bed, boom, he's gone. So I would suggest for you maybe putting it at night time.
Yeah.
After you've burnt through a lot of energy, mentally and physically. Yeah. And your brain's not going 1,000 miles an hour because it's got less to give. Yeah. So actually, meditation is giving nothing.
It is,
yeah.
No.
Might enjoy it.
No, I get it. I think that's also why I've always enjoyed. I don't enjoy it. It's completely unaligned with what I want to do in my life, but I've always found some sort of joy from physical labor jobs, because it just what wears my hyperactivity out, right? That's probably why I've connected quite well with at least the gym. I wish I could do more cardio, but my knees are not doing great these days. But finding something that physically can expend a lot of energy when you're so me and Dan Smith, right, we're literally like the same person in different skin.
Yeah,
that's why I probably enjoy working with each other all the time too. But I was struggling a lot in the last week or two with my mental health. Like I had a lot of things going on, and probably mostly down to my ADHD, like hyperfixation on things and whatever. And bless him, he's checked in every day, like it's not like a big message, like he's quite kind of, just blunt, but he's just like, any better today or whatever. Yeah. And then he was like, just go, and then he phoned me out, he's like, just go for a run or go on the treadmill if you can't run on the roads, and just go to the point where you're absolutely drenched. And he said, like, honestly, it just switches the game completely. Yeah. And I did that, and it's exactly what it did, because it takes your attention off your thoughts. And also helps with the dopamine kind of boost and all of the things. But like when we want to do something and we can focus on it and we believe in it, like ADHD people are freaks of nature.
Yeah.
Like absolute freaks of nature. Like, but the problem is it's finding the one thing and just going for that instead of finding like 10 things. Do you know, you can tell anybody, if you know anyone in your life that has like 20 browsers open on their internet, I guarantee you they've got ADHD or ADD, like, which is also similar. If someone has got like 20 plus page browsers open on their internet, I guarantee you they have some form of ADHD, ADD. Because it's just like, oh yeah, but I haven't even read that, but I'll get back to that. And oh, I must do that one. And honestly, I'll give you my phone now, a state of it. There's about 30 pages open.
Yeah.
And it's the same for new people in business, entrepreneurs and so forth too, that have ADHD. They have like on their laptop too. It's just a shit show. It's just chaos, right? Yeah. I reckon a lot of people would be quite surprised at the fact that they may have an underlying form of ADHD when they may even just appear normal. I mean, mine is as bright as day. It's obvious to anyone that has half an idea of psychology that like I have it. I didn't know it, but...
And that's actually quite a big thing recently with, I've noticed on social media, all the advice being given from people who have ADHD. But there is also the other label ADD, and it's actually quite common in females for them to not display hyperactivity.
Correct.
And even quite a few males as well. There's a large amount of men that are hyperactive, but there's a lot of people that aren't hyperactive. But the attention deficit is all internal. Like a lot of people aren't showing it, physically like you would, where you're all over the place and you can't shut him up, and he's doing 1,000 things at once, and it's like, does this man ever stop?
Yeah.
But a lot of people, it's very much in their mind, and there's chaos.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I definitely display it outwardly too. I mean, in my previous marriage, I know my partner at the time struggled with it a lot. Like when we go out to, functions, like social gatherings, I was a lot worse then. I mean, even you knew me back then. Like I'm definitely a lot better.
Yeah.
But like it was just nonstop. Like I wasn't even meaning to do it, right? But like there'd be say me, my partner at the time, and say you're another person, and we're conversing.
Yeah. And
you're saying something to me or to my ex-partner, my partner at the time, and I already want to answer what you're about to finish saying before you said it, and I cannot control the impulse to literally talk over the top of you and answer.
Yeah.
And to anybody else, that looks like very rude, almost maybe obnoxious and intentional.
Yeah.
Had no control. And it would almost cause arguments after the fact, like when we were going home with my partner, because she's like, it was so rude, and it was really kind of embarrassing, like that, what happened. And I'm like, I didn't mean to do that. Like I wasn't trying to, and I didn't, that back then, I didn't even know I had it. It was our good friend, Sarah, who's a psychologist, who just blased it to me one day when we were at work of like, oh, what's all, because she's got it too.
Yeah.
Oh, what meds are you on? What are you on about? She's like, for your ADHD. I don't have ADHD. She's like, yeah, you do. I'm like, no, I don't.
So that was the moment you found out.
Sarah, our friend, Sarah Short, she just casually, because she's had it too, and had her own journey on it, just casually while we were in the rehab that day, she was the clinical manager, right? And I was doing the outreach stuff, like the meth program. And we'd met about a client, whatever, doing a case conference. And afterwards, I must have been extra chaotic that day. And that's when she just randomly just slipped it in there. And I was like full confronted, like defensive, and be like, no, I don't. She's like, yeah, you do. Like, that's my job. Like, I can diagnose people. You got ADHD. Trust me, you do. And that was like the beginning of the journey. But then even trying to unravel that and explain it at the time to my partner that I had, after a couple of years of her already having to deal with my bullshit of all the things that were just over the top, by then it was like damage was done. It was hard to try and then segue in and be like, no, but I've got ADHD. And it's like, no, you're just rude. I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I understand it now why I'm over the top. You know, like even just simple things like entertaining. Right? You've been around my house back then when I lived in Alice, right? And another thing my partner would be so frustrated about for the night would be that I wouldn't be next to her the whole night. I would be up like I had a spring attached to my arse. Yeah. Like sat down. Oh, no, you want a drink? I'll go get you a drink. And oh, yeah, I'll get you a drink. I just wanted to help. I just wanted to entertain, right? Oh, you need a new plate? I'll get you a serviette. Bang, bang, like Zebedee, just boinging around. Literally, my ass would hit the chair and I'd bounce back up. And so the whole night, my partner felt very abandoned. Like, well, we're having a great night. We'd all have a great night. Yeah. But at the end of the night, she would quietly feel quite invisible and abandoned because I'd been entertaining everyone. Yeah. Sometimes wouldn't even tell me, and then I wouldn't know, and then that would fester. And
well, this is kind of hence the label, you know, attention deficit. You know, she was in a deficit of attention from you.
Correct.
As well. So not only does it impact you, it impacts everyone around you.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's I also read that it's quite common, or it's not uncommon, for a lot of people as they move through childhood with ADHD to kind of grow out of the hyperactivity and all the things, and you just wouldn't know that they ever had that diagnosis. And I know with a friend I'd gone to school with, you know, I'd left my hometown and then ran into him when I'd gone back years later, and he was a completely different dude, like calm, mellow. I was like, what happened to you? You know, like is someone like drilled into your head and tried to fix you?
Yeah.
But then no, it's just like it's something you can kind of grow out of.
You can grow out of.
Or
I think
down as you stack birthdays. Yeah,
I think stability helps too. I'm a bit of a free spirit, so I mean, I'm 40 in 2 weeks, and I don't fucking clue what I'm doing in my life right now. Like, I mean, I do. We're doing this business, but like, I don't really know what direction I'm going outside the business. The business is really the only identity I have at the moment. Yeah. So I believe stability, love, connection definitely would help continually grow it out. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Gives you something to have attention on, so you don't have too much time to have attention just inside your head, which then goes. Yeah. So.
Well, yeah, there's something else I want to touch on actually, because I feel like you know, you're not alone with ADHD, and I feel like there's probably going to be quite a few people listening to this that might go, all right, well, yeah, he's pretty hectic. He also sounds hectic on the podcast.
I can do.
You know, he's very relatable because, you know, you've kind of explained how you are at the moment. It kind of sounds like a teacher would explain a kid in the classroom with ADHD, you know. Yeah. I can't manage him or his behaviours. Yeah. Also, you know, it's hard to manage yourself. You know, there might even be parents with kids that they have ADHD. So I thought it'd be good to go through what it is you kind of do to keep kind of the lid on the disorder. You know, like is it routines, is it exercise?
I don't.
Is there rituals you go through, or?
I definitely wouldn't hold my hand up and say I've got a complete lid on it. But however, when I look at what I was, like say for instance when I met you years back to now, I'm definitely a lot better. I think just a lifestyle change. Like you have to look at this as a long game. You got to look at this as a marathon, not a sprint. Simple things like having structures and routines that you adhere to. Like you just find simple things on a daily basis to get right and keep doing over the coming months and year or years. And it just makes you feel like, all right, I've got a couple of things in order at least, right? Like, I mean, I know it sounds like, you know, a little bit kind of woke or whatever they call it these days, but like that kind of mindfulness. Honestly, like the mindfulness that I learned through the academy with Reg and the team and generally from reading and stuff, and just being aware of my own bullshit. Like when I start with a certain hyperfixation, I just kind of know, I kind of drop into myself and go, you're doing it again. And you can't control it. Like whatever you're thinking is going to be the outcome, it doesn't matter because you don't have control of it anyway.
But it's just that being aware that you're doing it. Like that pattern's here now.
Yeah.
And I'm aware of it.
Like, one thing I will say is, outside of obviously Western medicine and a diagnosis from a doctor, anyone with ADHD, you need to look at yourself like you would look at a pub or a shopping mall or whatever, right? Like, you'll go into a pub over your lifetime, right? And you'll blow, honestly, if you think about in your teens and 20s at least, and maybe some of us in our 30s, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in this lifestyle, this pub lifestyle.
Yeah.
Or drugs, right? Or clothes, or online shopping, or gaming, or whatever, right? You want to fix your ADHD, you have to look at this as a self-development journey, and you need to go invest a fraction of what you've wasted in your lifetime. Let's just say investing $100,000 over 3 to 4 years on different holistic practices, whether it be breath work, mindfulness, meditation, Wim Hof breathing, ice baths. Get yourself a coach, right? This is not a plug.
Yeah.
This is not a plug just because of what we do. I'm telling you, find the right coach, because there's a load of wankers out there too pretending they know what they're doing. But there is plenty of people out there that can coach you through your mindset.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, anything in life successful that you want to achieve is 95% mindset and 5% strategy. We learned this only the other day, right?
Yeah, I love that.
That's amazing, right? So you need to just be coachable, and you need to find yourself mentors, not too many, because there's another thing ADHD will do is you'll just grab hold of everyone, a couple of people, hone in, and be coachable and find people that can improve your mental health, your mindfulness, and find the modality that best suits you, whether it be breath work, ice baths, so many things out there you can do. And most importantly, just be kind to yourself, like, and start realizing, I think what's changed for me a lot and helped my ADHD and the hyperfixation, stop living in seconds, minutes and hours, and just start living in years and decades when you're trying to achieve something.
Yeah, that's really
It will take the sting out of the proverbial tail that will whip your ass every time you think you should be at A and you're only at B, when, to be honest, it doesn't really matter, because you'll get there. Success is a guarantee. Time is the only thing that you have to be patient with if you want something bad enough.
Yeah.
So, and exercise is the other thing for me. I need to go to the gym or do something physical that exerts me, not just a walk sometimes. Like, I need to do something that pushes me a little bit, at least 5 days a week. I have to. And like, I've tried to explain this before to people, even to my mum and dad, who they understand it now, but they didn't used to when I come home. I don't go to the gym to look buff and do all that rubbish. Like, I need it for my brain. I have to go. Otherwise, shit goes wrong real quick. And I get my hyperfixation on my body issues, which is another thing I've got to deal with.
Yeah.
But
it's kind of double-edged that too, though. Like, exercise is also a really great form of meditation.
Yeah.
You know, it requires a lot of focus. You need to be in the moment. You need to be able to, sit there and go through, how much weight have I got? What's the routine today?
Yeah.
And really be in the moment, count the reps, go through the movements completely.
Yeah.
So it is, you're very focused. You tend to, you have your music on, whatever it is, but you're very much at the gym.
Yeah.
In your head.
100%.
And, and then the other side to that is, it's very common for people with ADHD to feel emotions a lot more intensely. And
Massive.
That depression, that anxiety, they go through a breakup, they tend to feel it a lot more intensely than someone else. And it is, exercise is such a great combating tool.
Correct.
To bring you back up again.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of research and study on it at the moment. And I was listening to it today from I think it was a neuroscientist, and she was really recommending, just for everyone in general, when you're in that depressed state, that anxious state, or just those low emotional states.
Yeah.
As much as it pains you to think about getting off your ass and going to the gym, just get there.
Yeah.
Because you'll be amazed what it does to the chemistry in your brain.
Do you know as well the amount of young offenders in Australia today, a lot of Aboriginal young offenders too, and I learned this in the court system in Alice Springs through, do you remember Vernon? Remember the gentleman?
Yeah, he was
so he told me this. He said, it's unbelievable how many young offenders and adult offenders are undiagnosed for ADHD, which would then explain, 1, their behavior, 2, their lack of filter for danger, and 3, how do we rehabilitate them before they come back out?
Yeah.
So that just gives you half an idea of ADHD untreated and left to its own device, coupled with trauma from whatever's happened in the upbringing of the child. And that's the result. And I guarantee if they were to actually run tests and go and do this stuff properly and look through a lot of these younger people that are in institutes and even adults, I guarantee you, man, like you'll find that at least 85% of them would probably have ADHD.
Yeah.
Because that's the naughty child syndrome. So when someone's acting like that, I really don't believe anyone's a bad person. I just think we do bad shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll come back to this, but I want to let you take us into the news of the week.
All right. Let's do it. Read all about it. Read all about it. It's the news of the week. Yeah, it's that time of the week, and it's the time to have a little laugh at some of the media that we get to be given every day. I believe it's quite a interesting segment in our show that people enjoy. So this one's a cracker. So this woman, right, was flying from Melbourne to Brisbane, okay? She unexpectedly, like the plane, diverted to Sydney while they're flying and just cruising along, Brisbane to Melbourne. So the flight attendant explains that there'd be a delay, and then the passengers wanted to get off the aircraft and blah, 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 reboard in 50 minutes, right? Everybody got off the plane except this lady, right? But the lady was blind. So a man had noticed her as he walked by and could tell the lady was blind because seeing eye dog lay quietly underneath. You know, they have the dogs and they're blind, right? Yeah. In front of her through the entire flight. He could also tell she had flown this very flight before because the pilot approached her and, calling her by name, said, "Kathy, we are in Sydney for almost an hour. Would you like to get off and stretch your legs?" So the blind lady replied, "No thanks, but maybe Max would like to stretch his legs." Max being the dog. Picture this. All the people in the gate area came to a complete standstill when they looked up and saw the pilot walk off the plane with a seeing eye dog, a dog for the blind. The pilot was even wearing sunglasses, bruv. They sat there for a stopover for an hour in Sydney, and the pilot walks off while they're having their break, wearing sunglasses with a blind dog, and they've just been flown by this bloke, right? People literally scattered. They not only tried to change the planes, but they were trying to change airlines and everything, bruv. Like, true story.
Completely convinced that a blind man just landed.
I mean, I know we got good technology, bruv, but come on, eh?
But it is a good metaphor, you know, because things aren't always as they appear.
Yeah, well, this is true. This is true. Perspective, right? Like, what's the lion thing that you always tell me about, you know? Like the binoculars and the lion, right?
Oh, yes, yeah. Oh, I remember that conversation. I brought that up. And I did hear it somewhere. I just can't remember where. But it went a little bit like, you know, it was to do with perspective around being fearful in life. You know, so if you think of yourself, you know, you find yourself looking at a lion, and as you look at a lion, it's as if you're face to face with that lion. Yeah. And it can seem scary, you know, terrified, you know, anxiety, fight or flight, whatever's kicking in. You want to run away, but then, you know, someone taps you on the shoulder and says, "Can you pass me those binoculars?"
Yeah.
And then you remember that you're looking at this lion face to face through binoculars, and he's 200 yards away, and you're in the safari jeep and you're safe.
Exactly.
It's just a matter of switching your lens.
Right. It's all about perspective, bruv.
Yeah.
It's all about perspective. There you go. News of the week: blind pilot flying planes and landing them in Sydney, and everybody trying to change airlines. Oh, I tell you what, a lot of them wanted to pull their heads in. Christ, that's a classic. That is an absolute belter.
I want to go back to where we finished before the news of the week.
All right.
And you're just talking about a lot of you said Aboriginal people and other people in general, with probably all have ADHD or an undiagnosed mental health disorder, like Vernon had mentioned. I've also read, because I did a lot of research on this. I probably know more about what goes on with you than you. I love just researching this stuff. Yeah, but there's so much just around between exercise, the importance of diet, routine, writing tasks.
Oh, lists, bruv. Don't even get me started on the lists.
I know, and it's funny because when I went through all this, I'm like, oh, this is Danny.
Yeah.
I was Mr. Lloyd through and through. He's fucking strange with diets.
Yeah.
Tons of broccoli and crap. There's his vigorous routines, his lists. If he misses the gym, there's fucking meteorites falling. Everything's going on.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I clicked, I'm like, this guy's kind of set himself up the way a professional would say he should do it.
Correct.
And he's just running through it. And I think that's probably a big message for anyone listening is, if you're diagnosed, don't sit there behind your diagnosis and go, well, this is what's wrong with me.
No.
And stand behind the diagnosis.
No.
You can be relatively happy as you go about your life, but just
that gratitude.
Yeah, and stage your life for the best success and outcomes.
Exactly.
And a lot of it is all the things you should be doing anyways. You should be healthy in a physical and dietary sense. You should have good routines. ADHD or not, we thrive better in a routine with good habits. I was taking it somewhere and I just lost my ADD.
ADD's kicking in, bruv. The opposite to what I got.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. If TikTok was a treadmill, no one would be on it.
Yeah, correct.
We get confused at what we actually should be doing in life. Scrolling through TikTok and shit endlessly, and having ADHD, or not even without ADHD, I see the increase in anxiety and depression because people live in front of a screen, and what that does to the brain is incredible in its own destructive right. But like I said, if TikTok was a treadmill, no one would be on it. And, And I think it's very much about the way we move now in society and all the things going on around us. Like, I don't think anyone can focus. I think everyone's got a deficit, some just worse than others.
Definitely. I agree. I agree because of technology and screens and so forth. Everybody within reason has a deficit in attention span.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they have what goes on in people's minds that have ADHD. They just can't focus on things as much. No. Trust me, they're still fitting in systems and doing things and that at work, whereas someone like me is just a complete nightmare to manage.
Yeah, there was a psychology blog I had also brought with me I wanted to share.
Yeah. And,
I think we're going to see more and more people diagnosed. I think the way we move in society and with all these trends, we're going to have tons more diagnosis.
Yeah.
And those that don't get diagnosed, we're going to see a lot more drug use. We're going to see a lot more mental health problems. We're going to see an influx in all the things we're already struggling to combat and help people through. And I'd read this, and it says another obvious explanation for a rise in ADHD type behaviours is the increase in digital devices and their use by children, which is very, very much today. And it says it's no wonder children dive into electronic games. The games provide some degree of structure, meaning and control. Kids are able to impose the kind of control their parents should be imposing, and the kids relish it. And
But the parents don't have a choice because they're having to work, both parents doing jobs, and everyone's buggered. So they get home and just play on your iPad. I need a rest. I'm buggered.
Exactly. But then, as I finished that sentence earlier before bringing it here, I had that same thing go through my head, what you just said. But then I also had like a million pictures or movies play through my memory of all the kids all the parents, when they do have the time with the kids, they stick a phone or an iPad in their kid's hand so they can go and get a moment to breathe. And it's childcare is where the parenting happens. And then after that, social media and apps and devices is where the rest continues.
Yeah.
And then we get ready for bed, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of frightening what degree and level we have got to as a general population. There's all of the people that make their money online and they portray on their social medias that like they've figured out the fucking Da Vinci Code, right? And we're all just fucking plebs. If you've done it, good on you. But it's a very small percentage of people still that have figured that out. The rest of people that are still trying to just plug away and Christ, both parents working, juggling, all of the things. It doesn't mean you're a bad parent because you put your child in front of a device, but just try and unlearn that somehow, because you'll probably get a lift of energy from connecting with your child, which ironically you're avoiding because you're so tired.
Yeah.
And devices have just made things too easy. I said this the other night. It all went to shit the minute that they started putting Vegemite in a squeezy jar. It did, because then you just, like, already we're lazy, right? Now, ChatGPT, AI. So I seen this morning, ChatGPT, which generates and basically does your homework for you, is now coupled with a 3D writer that will actually write the homework as well.
Yeah.
So basically kids are brainless now. But technology is helping us, is it? It is, but it's not. 2032 will be bloody, what's her name? Sarah Connor and the crew will be fighting off Terminator.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to have the robots everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that saying, I hear you use it day in and day out, is the easiest things to do are the easiest things not to do. And sometimes I see the way we develop technology, and it is to kind of remove the easiest things we could be doing, but we'll replace it with an app, or we'll get AI to do it. So it's not that hard to write, a paragraph on your social media or internet and publish it, post it, whatever it is. Like, and now we've got a computer doing it for us. Like, it's funny. And we continue down this path talking about ADHD and mental health, and forever. We could almost do a second episode on it.
We could, but I feel like the gems have been dropped and the things that have been shared will connect with our audience, whether they have it or they have someone in their life with it, especially partners, right?
Yeah.
Partners suffer most with the ADHD problem within their partner. I know that my ex-partner probably had to put up with a lot more than she should have done because I didn't understand what I had. So, it's really important, if you have it, to share it very early on in your relationship so that you two can harness it, because it can literally make you look like you're ignorant and you're not listening to your partner, which I know stereotypically is what women say men don't listen, but it's like some men are really actually not meaning to not listen. So, it's been good to talk about it, and I hope there's been enough gems dropped there for parents, partners, families, friends, and even business owners alike to understand their people.
Yeah, definitely. That's excellent. All right, well, I'm going to wrap it up. I'd just like to remind everyone that if you are struggling with your mental health, I encourage you to reach out and get support for it. You're never alone, or you are until you get the help. So just reach out and get the help.
Yeah, 100%.
And if you're someone listening, you have ADHD, you might have picked up a thing or two. If not, would also love to hear from you about some little things you do. We might even blog it.
Yeah, definitely. And make sure, if you're watching, you hit the subscribe button. Put us some comments below about if you have ADHD or if you have anything that you're concerned about within your mental health, addiction or other, things, put them in the comments below as questions and we will answer them in the following episode. Other than that, keep shining and stay smiling and realize that no storm comes to stay. It only comes to pass.
Very true.
We'll see you next time.
Nobody is going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how
See you next time for the InsideOutrz podcast.